Speaking of this Freedom Day,
Mm-hmm.
and the freedom that we earned, and R.I.P. God rest the souls of those that died for it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's never to be forgotten. We spoke last week and we said we'd carry it on now about the legacy of apartheid.
Mm.
And I don't mean the legacy of it in a political way or financial way. I'm talking about it in a personal way.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that we still find in relationships, in marriages, in day-to-day lives, in offices? Let's just pick one for now, because I think it's something that we can speak about throughout the week. What are some of the legacies that apartheid has left with black people? Should I urge you, or did you have one?
I think one is broken homes.
Broken homes.
I
How
think-
is
I think-
apartheid?
I think broken homes. I think that, and also around responsibility of the home, right? And also the mindset. And when I mean broken homes don't start physically. Broken homes start in the mind,
Okay.
right? So when we have to look at, and again, we have to make a decision as people about when do we start blaming apartheid and when do we stop blaming apartheid, and when do we start saying this responsibility and accountability rests on us as a people. Yes, it
100%.
happened, but this is where we move on. Broken homes in the sense that for example, in apartheid eras, right, because men were taken from their homes where there was lots of land and they were heads of their homes, and they could have their families, they could have their cars, they could have
farmers.
right, they could have farmers, they actually had households, they could be fathers, they could be grandfathers, there were men in the village. The village had men. There were men in the homes. And when apartheid happened and the Land Act happened, subsequent to that, removing black people from the original land, placing black men in spaces of work where they were exploited for labor for the mines, then you pack them up in sardines, as we mentioned last week, and then you fill them up and they work in hostels, they sleep in hostels, they lose their manhood. They call the white boy who's 13 years old bust just because he's white. He is beaten, he is abused at work. And then we have to look at how has that impacted the home, the responsibility or the mental approach of home for black men. So in other words, when black men left their homes and they went to the towns, what did most of them do? They went and they got a umamncane wasedrobheni.
Because I'm here for
That's why
the year. Most only
100%.
went back during this Easter period and December.
100%. So
For those that did go home.
bekunomfazi wephepha nomfazi wasekhaya, right? So there was and it was not a wife, it was not civil marriage.
No.
There was a woman, in inverted commas, so let's call it a woman, staying here in the town, Sophia town, and Johannesburg, and in the city centers where they were working, Alexandra, in the townships, right? There was a woman here, and then there was a woman at home. Somebody to keep them company here and somebody to keep them company at home. Children are being born and in the villages. Children are growing up without a father, right? What Andile, right? And I'm just going to use you as a name as an example. What Andile are being born back in the village. Dad is here in Johannesburg.
See him twice a year.
You see him twice a
If
year.
you're lucky.
And if you are lucky, you see him twice a year. And sometimes he even likes this woman here more than he likes the one wasekhaya. Andile grows up without a dad. You tell me, what is the impact of having men grow up without their fathers in the villages? One, who's going to give Andile guidance when Andile is going through puberty? Who's going to tell Andile that actually, when I have my first wet dream, this is what it means, son. This is how who's going to tell, and who's going to teach?
Every time he's there, he's catching up.
Who's going to teach Andile about manhood? Who's going to teach Andile about being a father of the home? Who's going to be there to protect Andile's mother? Because that's why Andile's mother sometimes has got a psychologically unhealthy relationship with the son. Because you've now made your son your husband, because your husband is not at home, he's in the towns.
How does Andile see love in action?
How does Andile see love in action?
Relationship, love, mom, dad.
How does Andile emulate fatherhood if Andile has never had a father? How does Andile become a father if he's never had a father? And again, I say this. I want us to get to a point where we can acknowledge the injustices of the past, but take responsibility for our lives in the future and the
100%.
present, right? So Andile was never taught to be a father. So you don't have that emotional connection to fatherhood.
And there's no
because who was the
school
other?
for that.
There's no
This is
school.
something that you see and emulate in the home.
Andile was never taught manhood because the man in his life is gone, right? The uncles are also in the towns. They're busy calling white little boys bus, right? So when they come back, these men...
Psychological damage.
So the men who come back every Easter and they come back in December, they come back also angry. They come back abusive, right? They come back angry. They've been downtrodden. They've been called horrific, the K word, almost every single day by our system.
And this is from a black culture that, looks down or frails upon boy and man. There's such a distinguishing feature in African culture. Hence, most will go to the mountain, even you'll eat in separate plates, because boy and man are such different places and different things.
Exactly.
Yet in Joburg,
you're
a
being
boy.
you actually literally called boy.
Boy, yeah.
You called boy,
Yeah.
and you usually called boy by somebody who's 20 years old or 19 years old or 16 years old. Somebody's calling you boy as a man, a 40-year-old man with a household. Somebody's telling you that you need to eat this time, wake up this time, go to work this time for cheap labor. Somebody's calling you the K word every single day. Do you not think that is going to build and harbor anger and bitterness amongst the black man? That black man with anger and bitterness is going to go back home to the village. There's no outlet for that anger and the bitterness. You know where what anger and bitterness does? It formulates and scepters into resentment. He's going to start slapping around his wife because there's no outlet for him. His manhood has been taken away from him. The only outlet that he's got right now is this partner who's got expectations of him. I'm not making excuses for gender-based violence. I'm trying to get us to understand the historical imbalances and the exploitation that happened to our people that we have to acknowledge, as well as the people, if you're going to move forward. That's the pain. Now, the question that we need to ask ourselves is, with the reality that it happened with, when is Andile going to make a choice to say, I understand, I acknowledge it happened. I did not have a father, but I choose to learn what fatherhood looks like. Because somewhere, somehow, Andile, we need to stop saying, the white man did this, the white man did. I'm not saying they did not. I'm saying, when does Andile take responsibility for his own life and say,
the future's in your
that's
hands.
it, and say, I choose. My son will never know what it's like not to have a father. My son will never know what it's like to have to witness love from outside, from the movies, and not from their own home. When does Andile make a decision to change the course of history because of the decisions he makes today?
And I know a lot of you are hearing this on the radio right now, and you want to rehear it. You want to hear it again. You want to share it with somebody and ask perhaps their opinions and thoughts. You want to put yours as well. So we'll take this and we'll put it up on TikTok. We'll put it up on Instagram as well. It's Snawa, SNAWA. That's where we put all of these conversations with Faith and myself. I love the direction this one is taken, and it's something that we'll investigate a little bit further.